Okay, thank you. I'd like to say, first of all, Sawasdee Ka, or Sawasdee Jolliffe, since we're in northern Thailand, to the Thai tea and coffee community who are here today, and Mae Fah Luang University. Also, Ni Hao to China, because we have a class joining us from the Guangxi Vocational Technical College. And Konnichiwa to a class from Japan who are joining us from the University of Shizuoka. As many of you know, that is branded as the Tea City in Japan. And also via Zoom, we may have a few members of the Working Group on International Tea Tourism that was actually established here in Chiang Rai in a room very close to this auditorium in 2019. Okay, so it's my pleasure to be here to talk to you about transformative tea heritage tourism. So here's the agenda for the talk. First of all, I'm going to give some background, foundational information to the talk. Secondly, I will talk about transformative tea heritage tourism in northern Thailand. Now, this is really just a snapshot. There may be other things happening, but this is what I have observed not only over many years of visiting Thailand, but during a more intensive visit in January 2023. And then finally, I will make a little bit of a conclusion and give some thoughts about directions and where we're going from here. So the talk is based in part on a book chapter with the same title, Transformative Tea Heritage Tourism in Northern Thailand, that has actually been accepted for a book on the sustainable marketing of transformative heritage tourism that will be published by Routledge, I think probably next year. Oh. Okay, so I have a few slides here for the background. Okay, now all of the pictures in the presentation were taken by me, many of them in our very intense visit in January 2023. And I'm not going to say the names of the places because I have great difficulty and I get tongue-tied or tongue-twisted in pronouncing the Thai names. But to give you some background, heritage tourism relies on transforming a destination's cultural heritage assets into products that can then be consumed by tourists. Because really the product is the experience that the tourists have. And the heritage tourism elements include host communities, the use of the host destination's cultural assets, the consumption of experiences and products, and the tourist. And it's important to note that heritage tourism can contribute to the SDGs, although we really need a lot more research on this because we don't have the statistics. We don't know yet how this transforms to impacting people's livelihoods. Oh, all right, we have to go forward. Okay, so in terms of sustainable marketing of heritage tourism, this will combine elements of sustainability marketing and heritage. However, it's important to note that the resources for heritage tourism are finite. So we need strategic marketing plans that ensure the cultural and heritage sustainability of host communities. Tea tourism is really a small niche, and we're only going to talk about maybe bringing small groups of very interested, hopefully high-spending, long-staying tourists so that we can minimize impact. And marketing strategies can also encourage responsible consumption and visitor respect towards host communities. And very often, as has been the case in other countries, such as Japan, where Obubu Tea has set up a tea club, we may have opportunities to set up long-going relationships with those visitors, right? Where they will actually support what's happening here. Okay, so in transformative heritage tourism, the destinations employ tourism to enable development and sustainable economic growth. So it has to be a balanced approach. And the transformative heritage tourism concept process has personal, local, and regional perspectives. So it's transformative for the visitor, it's transformative for the local people, the hosts, and it can be transformative for the region itself. But future transformations will be influenced by the interconnectivity of perspectives, creating interwoven tourism values and experiences. And that's why it's so important what's happening at this meeting today, and what I see happening is the interconnectivity of the people who provide the very resource and the assets for tea heritage tourism in this region. Okay, so transformative heritage tourism has benefits for both communities and hosts, and for guests, visitors, and tourists. I'm not going to go through the whole list because I only have, I think, 20 minutes for my presentation. But a very important thing is that some of these visitors can be influencers in terms of promoting this, for example, Chiang Rai as a tea destination to the rest of the world, right? Right, in tourism theory, we call these people explorers. They're like the people who wrote the original guidebooks, the pioneers. They go and they see things and they write about them, and then other people will come. So the concept of tea heritage tourism, this combines the concepts behind heritage tourism that I've mentioned in an earlier slide of using the heritage assets and transforming them, and tea tourism. Now, it's important to note in terms of tea tourism, here we're primarily thinking of a producing area, but also tea tourism includes consuming areas, right? So there's tea tourism also, let's say in Chiang Mai with its 5,000 cafes, some of which might serve tea. I might find another example, but there's tea tourism in London with people going to the original Twinings store and outlet, or going for afternoon tea tours. So tea tourism is global at both producing and consuming locations. I don't have time to go into it today, but there are also types of tea tourists, right? There are the accidental tea tourists who just happen to be in a place, but then there are the extreme tea tourists like myself, right? Who want to go and immerse themselves in the tea culture. Okay, so what about transformative tea heritage tourism in northern Thailand? And this is just what I have observed. So we have many resources here for tea heritage tourism, and I think this is really unique in the world what you have, because we have both the deep tangible resources, the tea landscapes, forests, gardens, farms, factories, cafes, attractions, but we also have many intangible cultural assets here. The culture of the tea visits villages and communities influenced by the tea. We have a history of growing, harvesting, and preparation but of different types of tea. And I'll get into that in another slide. We have the tea knowledge, the intangible tea knowledge, and we now have the establishment of tea schools, and I see more tea companies offering workshops and offering immersive experiences. We also have the related material culture we might not think about. So we have pottery production, such as the CM Celadon that's owned by Ramming, right? That's all part of it. We also have tea, cuisine, and gastronomy. And we've had this big project recently between Japan and Thailand on the tea gastronomy, and also tea-related accommodation. So we have a really rich resource that I don't see this much diversity happening at other locations. So also in northern Thailand, we have many different groups of tea farmers, producers, and tea communities. And then we have the different types of tea that are grown. So we have the Camellia sinensis var samica, which is native. We have the Camellia sinensis var sinensis, imported from Taiwan. And we have the wild Camellia sinensis in the forest. So having all of these things together I think is very unique. So we have many different kinds of processed tea products. And we have deep culinary and beverage traditions. So if you think of, we have Miang, which monsoon tea has, jump-started into being forest tea. And we also have the Thai tea beverage, which is something that's cultural as well, right? So the contemporary enterprises that you have now reflect the various culture, heritage, traditions, and philosophies. So the visitor to this region will be able to, in one place, will be able to experience all these different aspects that they couldn't. If they went to Taiwan, they're just going to experience the Taiwanese way. But here, they're going to experience a lot. Now, I have two tables here, which I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but here's a table of tea heritage and traditions in northern Thailand. So this is an example of this diversity that I'm talking about. So you have, on the left, the groups. You have many different groups that are producing tea, right? And they all came from different heritages. And then in some cases, they're producing, maybe several different types of tea. And then their products are slightly different. So we have just some examples on the right. And if I left anybody out, maybe I didn't know about you, but these are just examples. Monsoon tea, Apa tea, Waputang, Tea 101, Ramming, Wawi, Araska, and the Cha Tra Mui, the number one tea brand. Actually, I should say something about Tea 101 because in 2005, I went to Mae Salong with my daughter and her Thai boyfriend, who's now her husband. And we went to talk to Ching Ching's mother, Tea 101. And we went there because she had been written up in Time magazine as being the queen of tea. And I would have liked to have done some really serious research then, but it wasn't. I didn't speak Thai, I didn't live here, it wasn't accessible to me. So it's taken me almost 20 years to get to the point where I'm really only starting to understand a little bit about the tea situation that you have here. Okay, so from that background, we have, this is just an example of some of the different companies or enterprises that are involved in tea, but that have tea tourism products and capacity. And you can see that many of them have not only, tea villages, tea gardens, tea factories, but many are starting to provide accommodation, restaurants, workshop, education. In fact, I noticed recently that even Monsoon Tea has, at their shop in Bangkok, has started to offer some workshops, right? So we have it here. It just needs to be packaged for tourists, and then it needs to be broadcast to the world, to the influencers, and then we need to bring people in a controlled way. This will never be mass tourism, right? Because that would ruin it. And we need visitors who are mindful, especially if they're visiting tea gardens, right? Am I speaking too fast for the... Oh, because we have some translators as well who are translating into Chinese. Maybe I'll slow down a bit. Okay, so we also have here in northern Thailand, and this is just an example, we have tea garden attractions such as Chui Fong, right, here in Chiang Mai, which is done at a very high standard. I mean, they not only have the tea plantation, but they have a tea cafe and shop, which has award-winning architecture. So a really beautiful experience. And they're also a sustainable business, right, contributing back to the community. Now, we also have the emergence of tea tours. And I can see this has only happened really post-COVID. Maybe during COVID, these enterprises had time to think about this. So we have industry embracing education with an increasing number of formal tea tours and workshops. So I've just listed some examples there of a couple of enterprises providing longer tours and then short workshops. I noticed even recently the tea garden owners in Hawaii, more than one, I noticed a couple have started to offer workshops, right? That people can actually go. And this is what the tourist wants today, is a more intensive, authentic experience. Okay, so here I'm just going to highlight, here are some strengths and weaknesses of tea tourism in northern Thailand. I'm not sure how the time is going, but maybe the organizers can give me a heads up when it's only a few minutes left, but we're getting there. So I want to note a couple of strengths. The GI, Geographical Indicator for Tea in Chiang Mai, which goes back, I think, a number of years, so that's one of the strengths. The tea and coffee destination strategy of Chiang Mai is another strength. You know, I would say the return of tourists to, how many? 3 minutes. Okay, the return of tourists. Okay, so you can see some of the weaknesses, but there's certainly more strengths than there are weaknesses, and these are all things that we can address. I'll have to go a little bit faster here. So here we have we also have many opportunities and threats. So we have an opportunity actually using some lessons from Japan. We have an opportunity to develop these membership clubs and what we call community shared agriculture, where the members actually buy into supporting the tea plantations. And of course, one of the big threats that we have is seasonal, the burning season. Okay, so I'm up to the conclusion. I think I have 2 minutes left to do the conclusion. Okay, and I didn't want to leave you without saying something about coffee tourism in northern Thailand, which is also very strong and has a lot of potential. So the principles I've talked about today for tea tourism can be applied to coffee tourism, but you have the huge advantage here of having the opportunity for promotion as a tea and coffee destination. You know, this makes you unique in the world. I don't know of any other destination that can do this. So there is the opportunity to develop products for tourists combining tea and coffee experiences, right? So they could have a culinary tourism or a food tourism beverage experience. So the question is there transformative tea heritage tourism in Thailand? I think definitely I see the emergence of this type of tourism. It has unique aspects that we've pointed out, the geographical indication, but also the Thai tradition of hospitality is a big advantage. And the presence of complementary coffee tourism. So this strengthens your destination position. Okay, last slide with content. So my conclusion on the situation in northern Thailand is that this transformative tea heritage tourism reflects the growing maturity of the regional tea industry. And I see it's in a developmental stage and a growth period, encouraged by post-COVID-19 travel, and the trend towards, new experiential opportunities have emerged. The lessons can be applied to coffee tourism, and there are some challenges to be overcome, but northern Thailand has a competitive advantage in the variety of tea heritages and traditions and related coffee culture. So, those are the references that I used in the talk. And for further reading, we recently published the Routledge Handbook of Tourism, 2002. Some of the contributing authors are 32 chapters, 69 authors. Some are in the audience here. So further reading, that's the name of the book. These are the chapters on Thailand. And for our students joining us from China, the first 3 chapters of the book were about China. And for our students in Japan, and their professor, I think, is in the audience here. So the fact that he was on our editorial board meant that he was able to encourage a lot of contributions. So I want to thank you, Kapam Ka, and thank you to the audience and the Tea and Coffee Institute at Ma Fa Luang for the opportunity to speak to you today. And I would welcome questions, and if anybody wants to contact me with any questions, there's my information at the bottom. Thank you. Kapam Ka.